Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our publishing and coaching services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Caron Goode, author of Nurture Your Child's Gift. Caron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Are you ready to get started?
I am.
All right, question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Oh, that's an easy answer. I would tell them to edit and get it edited again and maybe even a second time. My first book was 500 pages and I gave it to an editor and she took it down to 200, and it was actually a really easy book to read. But getting it edited to me is one of the strongest and most professional aspects that a to-be published writer could do. Clean it up, make it the best it can be.
I couldn't agree more. I always talk about there's several different foundations for having a great book. One, having a great looking book cover. Another part of it, having compelling book description, sales copy. But the other part of that is having a well-edited book.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, and the funny thing is that actually transitions into our next question, because typically I always feel that the hardest part of getting published is the editing part and just figuring out the whole process. But what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I find that editing is a big issue for people, but also I find too many people trying to rewrite the book that they've already written. So if somebody wants to get published, I suggest a dictation aspect, and then to read through that and then to edit that professionally, to have it done. Because those that really force it too much, their books become sometimes redundant in the content. So if the author can dictate the content and turn it over to an editor to angle in with a different viewpoint, to shorten sentences, to add a little punch, and to offer some interesting explanations for character development, I think those kinds of feedback absolutely make the book publishable and readable.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that worked well.
Oh, I would love to share the strategy of doing what we call blog travel. When I did my first book with a publisher, I lined up 25 of my good friends, people in Facebook groups and on LinkedIn, and I asked them to publish an excerpt from my book on their blog. So our marketing tactic was to invite different people to start at blog 1 and read to the next blog 2, blog 3, and all of these 20 different versions of book content on blogs that had good standing was a wonderful trip, and people absolutely loved it. And if they happened to miss part 2 and had jumped to part 3, they went back to read it. So it was good for me. I developed a lot of good sales and good content to help people with their own blogging. And in turn, the blog traveling from blog to blog, turned out to be one of the best things I ever did. People loved the idea of it, and they loved the idea of being able to sit down on a Saturday afternoon and read a book as it's divided up on different people's blogs, and to see how that blogger actually positioned it, how easy it was to read. So I hope that's an idea that people enjoy. It's hard to put together, or time-consuming, not hard really, but the benefit and doing the marketing a little differently than you see everybody doing traditionally was really a big hit.
Well, you bring up a great point. So basically, with these blog tours, you were taking content from your book and repurposed them into kind of like bite-sized portions, so to speak, and having different parts of the book through different bloggers. Now, were you also doing this over a time period? So, for instance, the first part of the book might be available on the Saturday, and the next part would be with this blogger on the Sunday. How was that done?
We actually put all the blog articles up at the same time. So if number 2 blogger sent out to her group, then they could go back to blog 1 and start there and do the whole series. So I think it was important to have the bloggers put content up, and their own group, who they mailed to, could read it right away. But we wanted everyone to be able to have the opportunity to start at 1 and go to 20 if they just so desired. So we did have it all put up at one time. And that coordination was handled by me and somebody that was helping me with my marketing.
Now,
so that's how it worked.
What was the process for actually reaching out to these bloggers, so to speak? Because I know we have a lot of listeners that are always interested about marketing strategies. So for them, what would be a great strategy for them to be able to develop this type of tour? Because this is very innovative.
So your question is, how do you reach out and find the bloggers?
Yes.
I went through my friends, and I went to Medium, and I also, of course, have my own circle of parenting coaches who I have trained through the Academy for Coaching Parents. And so some of them had already established their blogs, and others just had Facebook pages. So we didn't choose to use the Facebook pages. So between reaching out to bloggers on Medium and finding people in my own network who had substantial blogging experience, we just started asking, will you participate with us? Will you go with us? And I even went to Goodreads, and there were 2 or 3 people there who had female-oriented blog content. So I asked them. So if you go to Goodreads and you see people on Facebook who have big followings that are book writers, in addition to just bloggers from Medium and other big blogging sites, that's how I pulled it all together. I did some research, found the interested people, and of course, the traffic that came from all of this group was big traffic. So there really wasn't any begging anyone to participate. They were happy to do it.
Excellent.
Which I loved.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's definitely an innovative strategy, and I love the idea of also using Medium and also Goodreads for other people's platforms. That's such a cool idea.
Yeah, and people are happy to help. I'm the type that's a little shy to ask. But once you make a promise, in my world, I have to keep that up, or I feel bad that I don't. So when I promised these people that I would send them something, it was done, within half an hour. When I promised them that we would market this on time, it was done on time. Mm-hmm. And the feedback I got from those bloggers was to thank me for being so organized that it could flow smoothly. The only hesitation, and I listened to their hesitation seriously, was that somebody would, they'd get stuck with the content that didn't fit perhaps whatever else they were doing, and would they really get the traffic? So I had to say yes and then do it, and it was successful.
Yeah, it's one thing I always find with building relationships and partnerships with others. Being professional, being on time, and being organized. Those 3 things make all the difference.
That was the good feedback that I got. It made a significant difference to them, to the point that some of them asked if I was coming out with my next book or when that would be, and did I want their help. So the fact that they were even asking made me feel like, hey, we did this right. We did it well. So that was good.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
My favorite book was one that I read in my early years of being a teacher, because I had the summer off. So I picked up the book Hawaii by James Michener, and I was mesmerized by his writing. If you open the book Hawaii, it starts out with, the first I don't know, 75 to 100 pages about how the islands of Hawaii were formed. And you kind of get, you either don't like it or you get lost in it because it moves so well. And so I read that book, and I actually loved his writing style, and I copied his writing style when I did an essay, a teacher's essay, and it won an award, which is interesting. But I started dreaming about the islands of Hawaii after reading that book. That's how well written it was, and how, you know, as a woman, you know, just having time to read and sit down, it just, I digested it, but it encompassed me, it enthralled me. The writing by that man was excellent, just excellent.
Well, you're speaking to the choir. My favorite location outside of good old Arlington, Texas, is Kihei, Maui County, Hawaii. That is the place I consider my second home. So I understand completely. In fact, 2 of my books are actually based on trips to Maui. So you are preaching to the choir on that one.
It's a magical place, it is. And to have this man write about this particular family, I eventually met some of the members in the family that he wrote about, because it was a Chinese woman who came to Hawaii to escape China and the war there, and had 7 sons, and they all went to medical school but one. So when you get to the island and you begin to meet some of the people that were actually told about in the book, that made it even more real to me. So fascinating writing. Hope I can do that someday.
Well, for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote is one by Dr. Seuss, because my daughter and I read those books so that I had some of them memorized. My quote is, "Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind." Did I do it right?
That sounds pretty accurate to me. So why is that your favorite quote? 'Cause that's a great one.
I think the part for a shy girl who grows up and wants to write and has to give speeches and is in debate and thespians and all of this stuff in high school that my mom kind of pushed me into to get me through my shyness, it's these words: those who don't mind, those who mind don't matter. So those who accepted what I had to say in my speeches or my writing really gave me an increasing sense of security in doing so. And so those who matter don't mind, that was true for me. I found that to be true. When I started doing what I did to get through high school and into college, and some of the debate teams I was on, you learned who matters very quickly, and you speak to them. So that's why it has such a personal meaning to me.
Well, that's a great quote. Well, Caron, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
The best way for people to find me online is probably on Facebook for Caron B. Goode, and my email is Caron Goode, CaronGoode, @me.com, me.com. And I would be happy to meet and enjoy people and hear what they have to say about their own writing.
Well, Caron, thanks again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.